Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Hey English Podcast. I'm Philip, and today I'm super excited to talk about something that's on a lot of people's minds: how to improve your English as a non-native speaker. Whether you're just starting out or you've been learning for a while, this episode is packed with tips to help you boost your skills and feel more confident when speaking English. Now, learning a new language isn't always easy, but trust me, with the right strategies and mindset, you can absolutely make progress. And don't worry, I'll be breaking things down into simple steps, and of course, I'll throw in some useful vocabulary, grammar tips, and even a few idioms along the way. So, if you've ever felt stuck, or if you just want to take your English to the next level, you're in the right place. Let's dive in and get started. All right, so let's talk about the challenges many non-native speakers face when trying to improve their English. Trust me, you're not alone. A lot of learners feel frustrated or even embarrassed about making mistakes. But here's the thing: mistakes are part of the process. We all make them, and that's how we grow. One common challenge is the fear of speaking, especially in front of native speakers. I totally get it. It can feel intimidating, but remember, most people will appreciate your effort, not judge your mistakes. In fact, the more you speak, the better you'll get. Just think of it like riding a bike. The more you practice, the smoother it gets. Another hurdle is vocabulary. Sometimes you just can't find the right word or phrase, right? This happens to everyone learning a new language. But here's a quick tip: focus on learning words in context. So instead of memorizing long lists of random words, pay attention to how those words are used in sentences or conversations. That way, you'll understand not just the word, but also how it fits into everyday speech. Now let's talk a bit about grammar. I know grammar can feel tricky at times, like when should you use I have been versus I was? Here's a simple rule to help you out. When you talk about something that started in the past and is still true, use I have been. For example, I have been learning English for 2 years. But if it's something that's finished, use I was, like I was learning English last year. Small differences, big impact. Also, if you've ever felt confused about idioms or expressions, like when someone says, "Let's get the ball rolling," and you're wondering, what ball are we talking about? Don't worry. Idioms are a fun but tricky part of English. In this case, get the ball rolling just means to start something. It's phrases like this that can be tough at first, but they make your English sound so much more natural once you get the hang of them. Now let's talk about one of the most important keys to improving your English: consistent practice. I know you've probably heard this before, but let me tell you why it's so crucial. Think of learning English like going to the gym. If you only go once a month, you're not going to see much progress, right? But if you make it a regular part of your routine, even if it's just 15 or 20 minutes a day, you'll start seeing results. It's the same with English. Consistency is everything. And here's the good news: you don't have to sit with a textbook for hours. There are so many fun and effective ways to practice. For example, one of the best ways is by speaking with native speakers. I know that might sound a bit scary at first, but there are tons of language exchange programs online where you can chat with native speakers who are also learning your language. It's a win-win. Another great way to practice is through shadowing. Now, if you haven't heard of this technique, it's really simple. You just listen to someone speaking English, like in a podcast or a YouTube video, and then repeat what they say, trying to match their speed and intonation. It's an awesome way to get used to the rhythm of English without worrying about grammar or vocabulary. You're just focusing on sounding as natural as possible. Speaking of podcasts and videos, don't underestimate the power of listening. Watching English movies or series with subtitles, or even just listening to English podcasts, can really help you pick up new words and phrases. Plus, you'll start to notice how certain expressions are used in everyday conversation. And here's something important to remember: it's not about being perfect every time you practice. It's about making small, steady improvements. You don't have to speak like a native speaker overnight. It's totally okay to make mistakes because that's how you learn. Just think of it like this: the more you use English, the more natural it will feel. Whether you're writing, speaking, or even thinking in English, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Practice really does make perfect, or at least it makes progress. And progress is what we're aiming for. So make it part of your daily routine. Even a little bit every day can add up to big improvements over time. Now that we've covered practice, let's dive into something that really makes a difference: expanding your vocabulary. Because let's be honest, the more words you know, the more confidently you can express yourself. One of the best ways to expand your vocabulary is by reading. But here's the trick: don't just read anything. Read things that interest you. Whether it's articles online, novels, or even news stories, when you're reading something you enjoy, it's so much easier to stay engaged. Plus, you'll come across words in context, which helps you understand how they're actually used in real life. For example, if you're reading about technology, you'll naturally pick up tech-related vocabulary like innovation, algorithm, or interface. But if you're more into cooking, you'll learn words like sauté, marinate, or ingredients. So whatever you're passionate about, let that guide your reading. And when you come across a new word, try to learn it in a sentence rather than in isolation. It helps the word stick better. Another fun way to build your vocabulary is by watching movies or series. Here's a quick tip: watch with subtitles. It's a great way to catch new words and phrases, and you can even pause to look up anything that confuses you. And don't forget about music. Listening to English songs and paying attention to the lyrics can introduce you to new words and expressions in a fun way. Oh, and don't be afraid to use language apps. Apps like Duolingo or Memrise are great for learning new words on the go, and they often include spaced repetition, which is perfect for helping those words really stick in your memory. The key is to focus on learning words you'll actually use. Sure, it's cool to know some fancy words, but start with vocabulary that fits your daily life and conversations. The more practical and relevant the words are, the easier it will be to remember them. So whether it's through reading, listening, or even using apps, make vocabulary building a regular part of your routine. The more words you have in your toolkit, the more expressive and confident you'll become. Now let's talk about something that often gets overlooked but makes a huge difference: pronunciation. It's one thing to know the words, but it's another to feel confident saying them, right? One of the best ways to master pronunciation is by listening closely to native speakers. Whether you're watching movies, listening to podcasts, or even tuning into YouTube channels like this one, pay attention to how words are pronounced. Focus on the sounds, the rhythm, and even the intonation. English has a certain musicality to it, and once you start picking up on that, your pronunciation will improve naturally. But here's the trick: don't just listen, speak. Try repeating words and sentences out loud after hearing them. This is where that shadowing technique I mentioned earlier comes in handy. Mimic the speaker's pace and accent as closely as you can. You might feel a bit silly at first, but trust me, it's a powerful way to improve your pronunciation. Another great tool is recording yourself. I know it sounds awkward, but recording and listening to yourself speak is one of the best ways to spot areas for improvement. You'll notice if you're stressing the wrong syllable or pronouncing certain sounds incorrectly, and then you can adjust. It's like giving yourself instant feedback. Also, don't forget to practice tricky sounds. For example, if you struggle with the th sound in words like think or thought, spend a few minutes each day practicing just that sound. It might feel like a small detail, but mastering these tricky sounds can make your English sound much more natural. And remember, pronunciation is all about consistency. You don't need to sound exactly like a native speaker, but clear, confident pronunciation will help you communicate more effectively. So keep practicing, and don't be afraid to ask for feedback from friends or teachers. It's all part of the learning process. All right, let's switch gears a bit and talk about grammar, specifically how to avoid some of the most common mistakes. Now, grammar can feel like a challenge, but with a few simple tips, you can dodge those tricky errors. One big one is the difference between I have and I am. I see a lot of learners say things like I am 30 years instead of I am 30 years old, or I have 30 years. It's small but important. Just remember, I am is for things like age, emotions, and states of being, like I am happy, or I am a student. And I have is for possession. I have a book. I have an idea. Another common mix-up is with verb tenses, especially when talking about past events. A simple tip here. If you're talking about something that happened at a specific time, use the past simple. So instead of saying, I have seen that movie yesterday, say, I saw that movie yesterday. Have seen is for when you don't mention when it happened. Finally, watch out for subject-verb agreement. It's easy to say, she go to school, but don't forget to add the S. She goes to school. Small details like this make your sentences sound much smoother and more natural. The key is to be mindful and practice these patterns regularly. The more you pay attention, the more natural these rules will become. Now let's talk about something that's just as important as all the tips and tricks: motivation and confidence. Learning a new language isn't just about mastering vocabulary or grammar. It's also about believing in yourself and staying motivated. One thing to remember is that progress takes time. You might not notice improvement every single day, but trust me, every little bit of effort adds up. Whether it's a new word you've learned or a conversation that went smoother than before, celebrate those small wins. They're proof that you're moving forward. Confidence comes with practice, but it also comes from embracing your mistakes. Don't be afraid of them. They're part of the journey. Every time you make a mistake, you're learning something new, and that's how you grow. So, instead of aiming for perfection, aim for progress. The more you use English, the more natural it will feel. And most importantly, keep reminding yourself why you started. Whether it's for work, travel, or just personal growth, hold on to that motivation. It'll keep you going, even on days when it feels tough. You've got this. So, to wrap things up, remember that improving your English as a non-native speaker is a journey. It's about consistent practice, expanding your vocabulary, mastering pronunciation, and avoiding those common grammar mistakes. But most importantly, it's about staying motivated and confident along the way. You don't have to be perfect. Every bit of progress you make is a step in the right direction, and the more you practice, the better you'll get. Keep trying new things, push yourself out of your comfort zone, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's where real growth happens. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you found these tips helpful, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more tips on learning English. We've got lots of great content coming up to help you on your language journey, so stay tuned. Until next time, take care and keep practicing.